version 1 of the Scimitar with the Saab 2.3 turbo engine and the Vauxhall Omega 5-speed, the engine sat much lower and it was like slanted over a good 15 degrees. I made a sump to fill that gap. I was always quite worried that it was quite shallow sump, and being it was my first attempt at a sump TIG welding, it wasn't brilliant and it did used to leak a little. Now that I've gone to the BMW DCT box, which is huge, the engine sits so much higher up that I'm allowed a bigger sump. So I've mounted the engine vertically. I folded up some metal for a sump. I then gave it to a welder because I didn't have my TIG welder at the time, and also it's bloody hard work making sumps. So I had him glue it together for me. I've got it back and I've made, or I'm about to, maybe I'm filming the intro after I've done all the work. Who knows? Editing, magic. I'm going to do a baffle trapdoor system for the sump. I'm also going to do a balance shaft delete, which means blocking up some oil ways and removing the balance shaft, all in the aim of getting good oil pressure and keeping oil pressure. So yeah, enjoy. So I bought the flange off Fab, and I bent some bits of stainless to suit it. Then I had a professional welder welded together. So this is what I've got. It's quite deep. The oil pickup on the Saab engines in the sump is integral. So I came up with this idea for the removable oil strainer. Some cars have got a very tiny gauze strainer, like these are standard, and if they block easily with like Loctites and sealants, and you kill the bottom end. Well, if you look at a B202, like my 900 Turbo, their oil pickup has got massive holes in it like this, so I thought it'll be fine, and this is what I've come up with. I turned this pipe, opened up the inside of it, same size pipe, turned this down externally so it'll slot in it, and then welded up the end, or rather had the end welded up, and then that goes in there, that's nipped up and it's removable. So now I'm going to baffle it. So what I've come up with, bent this bit of steel, I'm going to place that quite far back like that. There's a trapdoor style, which means as I want the oil to flow into this area but not out. And then I'm going to put a flat piece of steel across the top. This is a crossover pipe which it needs to clear. And that's going to be angled slightly backwards with a big hole there. No holes anywhere else. And that will promote all the oil to drop down over the pickup. But basically the pickup will always be in oil. I was thinking of putting 2 on the bottom, but I think I'm going to go for 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. Then the flow will come back and not forward. Kind of like the Titanic, these like partitions in an ideal world will basically the oil level will stay above, what am I trying to say, the Titanic sunk. Basically Titanic 2 coming soon. I think that looks about right. Gonna spread it into position and weld it in place. There's going to be, as you can see, so much crap to get out of there. But hey, that's what oil filters are for. So on top of the sump, what I'm doing is making a plate. I think it's called a windage tray. basically what you end up with, the crank whips around, whips the oil into like a mist, and you can have oil problems from that. So the idea is to put this tray on it. As you can imagine, the crank is sat there, all the oil is draining off it and off the timing chain down to the bottom. This is angled like so, like a hull of a boat, and then angled backwards, so the oil drops onto it, drains back. Drilled a big hole here where it drops in over the pickup, and so majority of the oil will fill the pickup. On the Saab engine, like I've mentioned, there's a crossover pipe. Very annoying. Let me just show you it. Ignore the mess, I do. This pipe here, absolutely important. That drops out, you lose all the oil pressure. So I've created a slot for that pipe. Not 100% sure if it's going to clear. 25mm seems to be the minimum amount of clearance I need at about the centre. So I've set that to 25, more gripped it in place, counterbalanced it. It's sat where I want it, it's tilting backwards. Now I've made these brackets each corner. I was going to make them up the front, but I may have to cut this whole lot off the front, so rather than do them twice, I'm putting them there. I'd have to cut the front off if this doesn't clear that pipe, and I'll just have to run it with this bit open. That's the way it's going to be. So I'm going to tack these in place and see how I get on. Okay, so this is what the final article looks like. I've cleaned it all up. I'm just going to pour in 5 litres of water to see where it sits. So I've got it sat pretty level now, which is how the engine's going to sit. Got water in can and a jug. I'm going to pour a litre in at a time. So this is for the dipstick, and this is for the crossover tube. Third litre going in. 4 litres. This is 4 litres. Now I normally like to run engines of 5 litres because that's a good amount of oil you can, it's a readily available amount of oil, isn't it? Look how steady this is, and look how much it's sloshing up the front. The trap doors are definitely doing something. 5 litres. Happy with that. Yes, so the pickup's right there. Yeah. Nice. Because if you look at this front bit, like just in front of that baffle, I can see the pickup pipe. The pickup pipe gets exposed. And then in that, you can never see the pickup pipe. Nice. So I've got a balance shaft removal kit for the Scimitar engine. Blocks up some like oil galleries, so I can pull the balance shafts out, increase the weight, decrease the weight of the engine slightly, but more importantly block up old unused oil galleries, which means more oil pressure where it's needed, the crank. So this is the absolute fun and games cars can be. That has rounded off. I tried an old school hammer impact driver. These are pretty good, but no, not working. So it's countersunk, so I'm going to drill the head off it. Great. And then just like that, hands loose. So behind that cover, this is what you're faced with. You've got your main timing chain and guides, and then ahead of the timing chain you have your balance shaft chain. These are the balance shafts here and here. The chain runs around and down through there. Balance shafts run at twice the speed of the crank, and the whole idea is it sorts out harmonics on the engine. When I I removed the chain, I left the balance shafts in. I thought it's not really going to cause any harm, but I have got questionable hot oil pressure at idle on this, like 15 psi. So I'm going to remove them and block them up. What I'm doing, remove this, pull these out, and fit these caps. Sounds like it's going better, chat. Wowzers. Intentionally putting holes in the engine. There is one of the bearings on the back. Now to get a socket and drift it on out. You okay? Let me see my socket. There she is. Pretty bloody scored. So this is what I've just knocked out. As you can see, it is a bit scored. So this engine, I had bottom end low oil pressure previously. Bottom end failure, the bearings are down to the bronze or whatever's underneath the white metal. I did the bottom end, did a fresh crank in it, brand new crankshaft, and then I didn't have these balance shafts rotating, so I didn't replace them. But no doubt these are worn slightly, and hopefully they're allowing oil pressure to pass. And this is what I replace it with. So as you can see, this is where the oil goes through to lubricate the shaft, and this just goes in and blocks them galleries. So pretty level. Is this flash working? Yes, apologies for that. So you can just about see the oil holes. This one's a little bit narrow, so I'm just going to knock in until it's central by eye, and that should do it. A little bit more. Alright, I think that's it. For the front side, there's this. Luckily, I've got plenty of cuts from the lathe. Super. That's one side done. Oh, I don't know if I pointed it out, but tap that to M6 and thread locked it in there. Just tapped the core plug on this side. It was a little bit of a pain because, as you can see, the box is in the way, but I got it in. This side is going to be much harder because the box is well and truly in the way. I'm not taking the box off because it weighs a lot. It's the right pain to do it, but I've got a plan. Watch this. Okay, so I've got these installed, 4 of them, 2 on the front, 2 at the back, blocking up the oil galleries. Shut up, dog. Tensioner hole drilled tap to M6 and grub screw thread into that. This is no longer needed. It was just an idler gear, that's gone. This has to stay because otherwise the crank pulley will try and pull down further, so it acts as like a spacer. And there was a guide that's no longer used. I turned it down on the lathe. Why not? Fill that up. I don't think you need it. I don't think that would move otherwise, but I'm just going to fit that. Fit the front cover back on. Then I'm going to drop one of the big end bearings, check that there's no damage on it, and then chuck the sump on. This is the top one, so the piston side. Light scoring. Then this is the bottom side, the non-thrust side. Come with me and you can look at the crank for me. Yeah, feels smooth. They're going back on. I've turned the crank over to make sure it's not hitting anything, because I'm not going to name who it is because it's quite embarrassing for him or her, but I know somebody who went turbocharging his original their original 1725 comma engine, put an oil drain into the sump, didn't check the engine turned over, started it, and then it was just making this bang 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 noise as the crank turned around and hit it. I bet them felt like an idiot after that, but don't worry mate, your secret's safe with me, Adam. Whatever, it was me, alright? Alright, that's it, the new sump is on. I've just put 4 litres of oil in it, because I was basically thinking I don't want the hinged trapdoors to sit with no oil on them. It would just annoy me if they just partially seized in the slightly open position after all that work. So I've poured some oil in it so they're bathed in oil, and balance shaft delete kit has been carried out. So I'm going to fit it in the bay next and glass in the larger tunnel. So stay tuned for that. Cheers for watching.